BeastNet is brought to you by James Safety Services in partnership with OCR Buddy and OCR Strong. Here we discuss all things OCR and fitness related. Welcome to BeastNet.
Hey everybody, it's Mike with BeastNet, and today I've got with me Rose Wetzel. So Rose, for those that don't know who you are, introduce who is Rose?
Who is Rose?
Yes, who is
Wow,
Rose?
has that changed since I turned 40 and I've reflected on my life so much more? I am an obstacle course racer. I'm a mom. I'm married. I have some friends I pay. No, I am, I've been an American Ninja Warrior. I am a world traveler, thanks to Spartan having races around the world. And I am someone who loves people, who loves to get to know people, loves to connect with people. And I'm pumped to be on this BeastNet podcast.
Well, thank you for being here. It was funny actually when Dawn emailed me and said, "Hey, Rose wants to come on the show," and I'm like, yeah. You're one of the ones I've actually honestly wanted on the show since like the beginning. I think almost
Thanks.
5 years into this. So, you, like I said before we started recording, I've followed you for years. So I've met you a couple times here, in the Seattle races, and then randomly, after a workout in Ballard, and all that kind of stuff, and followed because you were local. You started, local here to us in Seattle.
Yeah.
Correct. Yep. And then, you on American Ninja Warrior, like you said, OCR athlete, you had a baby and came back, which a lot of people, think that is, not an impossibility, but a tougher thing to do.
It's not easy. There's no sugarcoating. It's not easy.
Yeah. So, it's definitely not easy. And that's one of those things. It's you've done a lot. It's amazing to follow your career and see, like an obstacle course race, you've had all these things thrown at you, but still you just kind of keep going along, and you keep, in the world championships a couple weeks ago, you were in the top 10, right?
Yeah. Thanks. I appreciate all your kind words. And I will say, I don't give up. I keep showing up. And there are a lot of us that do that.
Mm-hmm. There is.
When it's challenging, when it's difficult, we get gritty instead of saying, "Oh, this didn't go according to my plan," my birth plan or my life plan. It's like, well, welcome to obstacle course racing, where who knows what will happen to you in that day, and you need to be able to pivot and think through it all. So yes, I do think that obstacle course racing in some ways prepared me for life, and for life throwing all kinds of things at me.
I've heard that from a lot of people that do it, because like I've done it for years now. And I've gone from, I was 310, I dropped down to 180 for a while. Now I'm back up to about 220, but I feel more comfortable here than I did at 180. Like 180, I was like too skinny. So I wanted to get build the muscle back up. But it was one of those things, like life throws obstacles at you, and you just kind of step and keep going. It's like, like you said, a Spartan race. You're running a Spartan race. And how many times have you been, because I think I was reading one of yours, I think where was it you that took first on one because the other two missed the spear?
I think I got second, but yeah, in a recent race. Yeah. And then the opposite happened to me in Abu Dhabi at the Spartan World Championship, 2 weeks ago. So it's one of those things where it's like, you just have to be able to, you're never just as good as an athlete as your last race. And I think a lot of people can really get, especially if it's the last race of the season or it's a really big race, they're like, oh man, I can't believe, I quote unquote only got this, but last year I got this. It's like, well, maybe last year was an anomaly and this is more the real year. Or maybe, yeah, that is your potential, but you had who knows what, the RSV the week before. There's so much stuff that life can throw at you. And anyone who's a parent knows that you don't get to choose when your kid gets croup in the middle of the night or whatever. So you roll with it.
You do. And that's one of the things, like you said, and that's something to bring it, like your daughter's Taylor, right? Is 5.
Yeah.
Yes. That is one of those things that obviously physically demanding on your body to have a baby.
Yes.
But anyone who's a parent knows how physically demanding it is on you mentally and physically after having the baby. Like you said, it massive changes to your body through the the 9-month process, but after that it's the sleep deprivation, it's the worry, it's the mental, it's everything else. but to continue to be, you know, a top level athlete is amazing.
Well, thanks. And you're absolutely right. There's so many things that happen after. I mean, yes, you know, you're pregnant for, 9 months, in my case, 9.5 months, where my finish line kept getting moved back. But to be honest, I would rather have that than giving birth at 6 months. So I am grateful for that. But at the same time, it's just like, man, not everybody talks about the hormone fluctuations, and some babies sleep well, but some don't, and some people do okay on sleep deprivation, some of us really don't. So there are all kinds of different things that you don't really know what they're going to be like until you experience it. And people can say things like, oh, you're going to have a baby, it's going to change your life, and like, okay, haha, or thanks, but you've no idea until it happens. And some people do, quote unquote, make it look easy. And for some people it's more challenging than others. Same with anything. And it's great if someone's able to be like, hey, my labor wasn't too bad, my pregnancy wasn't too bad, afterwards wasn't too bad. That's great. But at the same time, though, it's like there are so many different experiences. And I think I don't want to say the mistake, but I definitely am an optimist. And I remember thinking like, oh, well, like so-and-so, or like Coucher came back after 6 months and PR'd, and like, okay, I'll work that hard too. And it's just like, there's so many different ways that an optimist sometimes, can serve herself or himself well, and others not. And I was like, oh, I lost a ton of blood because I had this emergency surgery after I gave birth because my placenta didn't come out, but like, I'll be fine. Okay, no, you lost a ton of blood and had 2 transfusions. And like the one little bump that women can get after giving birth athletically is like, they'll get, besides this like mentality of like, I can do anything, is like you get some extra blood volume. And I lost all of that out the window and then some the day I gave birth. So, I didn't calculate very well. The optimist in me was like, I'll be fine. Although, to be fair, I also moved my entire family to Colorado to help get my iron levels up. But it wasn't the same as just having all that extra blood and having my normal blood. And then I'm in a new place and it's winter and I don't really know anybody, and we're on our own. And so there's all kinds of things, again, like we said, that life can throw at us. And if we have a plan and we think it's going to go well and we can't handle it when it doesn't go well, it's going to be extra challenging. But if you've learned to roll with things and have a plan A, B, C, and D, and then it just makes it easier. And for me, it's made it easier to kind of persevere through, a couple of years of not performing where I thought I would be, because I knew that if I kept showing up, kept doing what I love, and kept doing it for the right reasons. So do I love to win? Yeah, I love to win. Don't get me wrong. There were years upon years where I won most races I did, road races after college, and that's in costume half the time. I mean, that was fun.
Yeah.
But if that's the only reason I did it, I would have stopped a few years ago, many years ago. So anyways, I think we all figure out why we love to do whatever it is we do, and especially with OCR. And it's helpful to have, what I tell my clients, my personal training clients, my life coaching clients, is like, have this diversified portfolio of motivations. So if one's not working for you, you have 3 or 4 other ones that'll work, so maybe you love to win, or love to win your age group, or love to, finish if you don't always finish, but that didn't happen that day. Okay, well, maybe you also love the community. And you also love, hanging out with this or that person, or you love the fact that whether you finish the race or finish where you wanted to, you can have other goals. So not just an outcome goal, but a performance goal where you're like, hey, I kept a good attitude the whole time. I didn't go out too fast this time. I, did all the obstacles, the ones I hadn't done before. So anyways, we learn, I think, as athletes, and especially as OCR athletes, how to really show up with lots of reasons to do it, because there's so many variables that can be thrown at us. And if it's a muddy day and you didn't quite get done what you wanted to get done, well, hopefully you got a lot of great friends afterwards, or you still get a cool medal and that's your collection, and your goal is 100 by the time you die, or whatever.
Yeah.
So I love that part about it.
So do I. I mean, that's one of the things that for me, it's one of those, because like I said, I was a lot bigger for a bit and then I lost the weight. And then I made new challenges. It was like, all of a sudden I wanted to be able to run competitive and do that. And I've done a couple competitive races and it was fun. But then
Awesome.
I started like, let's try triathlons. Let's try this, and it's like, once you get into it, and that's kind of like, I find with OCR, you find different things, like you're saying, to look forward to. Like for me, it's like, I've had 2 Ironmans and I've DNF'd both, but
But you showed your butt up to the starting line.
I did, but I learned from them both. And it's like one of those things, like I have my brain doesn't work the way some others, I think, because for me, I have like the bags I got from them and I call them my failure bags. And everyone's like, that's a horrible thing to say, but I'm like, but you're looking at it from a different perspective than me. I look at it, I didn't do what I planned doing that day. So these are my bags to remind me of which mistakes I made that day and how I'm fixing them for the next one, and that's how I look at it. And both of them, one of them was just because I didn't have the right bike and I didn't train right. So I trained right for the second one, but then I crashed the bike. So,
Third time's a charm. It sounds like you've gotten all the mistakes out of the way. But I love your mindset. I love your attitude. That's huge.
It's just keep going. It's kind of one of those things for me. I was not, and some people know I wasn't an athlete as a kid. I was the smart kid and my brother was the athlete. So like my parents never came to my athletic stuff, anything I did. So for me, it was always like show up and have fun because I was never supposed to be the better one at athletes. But it's like now I'm just like, okay, when I don't do it quite right, let's take a step back and see, okay, what didn't I do and how can I do better? And it's just, I want to do better than I did last time. And that's my goal every time. So just go out and do better than I did. And if I don't, what mistakes did I make and how can I fix it?
That's so awesome. And you're having fun and you're doing it for yourself and you're doing it in a way that serves you. And that's beautiful. It is. It's beautiful. So cool.
Yeah. And that's, I think you learn that a lot in OCR too, where it's one of those things because I think road running, we both done that. It's all you're looking at is time. The whole thing really. For like me, it was always, what's my time? Am I faster than I was last time? Did I do better? Is my marathon quicker? Is my marathon slower? And when you started with your first marathon being 9.5 hours, it was pretty easy to beat that. But, for me anyway.
That's actually very impressive, by the way. But like I always say, anyone who does a marathon, any pace is impressive, period. End of story. Front of the pack, you're training like crazy, amazing. But back of the pack, you're doing something for 9.5 hours that probably doesn't necessarily feel super like great and sleek and amazing. No. Like that's beyond impressive. So just, kudos to you.
Oh, thanks.
Not that you need it.
Yeah, sounds like you're I promised myself I'd do one by my 40th birthday. And I did the Seattle Marathon 6 days before my 40th birthday. And I was not ready for it. I had not trained like I should have. And I'm just like, well, I'm going to do it because I said I would. And then after that, the best I've done actually is I did the Tunnel Marathon in 4:39. So
wow, in 4:39?
Yeah. So
that is cruising.
That was my best.
Holy smokes. So, literally half the pace.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So, that's cool.
So yeah, so that's like me. I was always looking at time, but then once you get into OCR, time doesn't really completely factor in because it's like, the Vegas sprint is going to be faster than like the Portland sprint because they're two completely different races where Vegas was nice and flat with a little bit of, sand, but then Portland has all the hills. So it's like, it's the same distance, but not the same.
And it's not always the same distance either.
Yeah, it's not always the same distance. It's close, but no. But so it's like, getting in a certain time and, Vegas isn't going to be the same as getting the certain time, So it's like you're looking at other factors like, did I make every obstacle? What obstacle did I fail? What obstacle did I have problems with? And then you're coming back like, okay, how do I fix that?
Totally.
So it gives a whole different way to look at things.
Yeah, that's amazing. And that's the way to do it. Because you can only really control so much in life and in racing. Mm-hmm. And if you can say, hey, like for me, one of my performance goals, not outcome goal, I want to be top 10 or would really love to be top 5 or who am I kidding? Top 3 would be amazing. It's like outcome goals. I want this outcome. But really, I also have these other performance goals that are more in my control because I can't control who shows up. There could be 7 people who have been secretly training for OCR and it's bunker somewhere and they all show up and like I could have the race of my life and they could all beat me and then some and then I could say what happened. So to be able to have those more objective in your control performance goals is so key to the longevity of anyone in any sport because I can say zero hesitation on Olympus, just go right into it, don't stop, don't rub your hands off, don't take a deep breath, go into it, shave off that second at monkey, but take a risk, skip one, whatever. And that will lead to a better outcome, usually, not always, because if you take a risk and you lose the gamble, then you're doing 30 burpees thinking, doggone it, why did I do that? But then for next time, okay, now I know. maybe I'm not ready to skip double on the monkey bars, but I am ready to go straight into the Olympus. You learn, yes. And that's the beautiful thing about it. You take your own little analysis, you challenge yourself in a new way the next time, and you go at it the next race with this fun sense of like, oh, but can I do this? And it keeps us hooked.
Oh, it does. It's like you said, I mean, you've got to keep challenging yourself. And I think that's the one thing, like I said, the real challenge you have when you're doing road races, which nothing against road races. I still do road races, but the only challenge is beating your time, where a lot of times when you're looking at some of the OCR races, it's those other challenges. Like you said, can you just jump right into Olympus and go to save that little bit of time, skip something on the monkey bar, skip, one of the rungs. I mean, one of those things. And it's like, you're taking those gambles, which, like you said, could be come out great and you save a second, or it could be you lose a bunch because you do 30 burpees. So, and that's kind of one of those things, where you never know.
You never know till you try it.
Yes.
Can you run with the bucket the whole time without completely, being toppling over by the end? Don't know till you try.
No.
But there's something really amazing about finishing a race just totally wiped, just being like, I gave it everything. And the present moment focus that comes with that, it's priceless, because so many times our brains are just like, and oh, it's my brother's birthday today, which it is, by the way. I sent him a card, but I need to call him still. So thank you for that. But just like my brain can go a mile a minute. And there's something about like racing hard, racing to my best. I personally love having someone like right next to me, pushing me. So I'm personally excited for Spartan's new format in the 3K, partly because I think it'll be better for spectators to watch, but it'll just be more intense.
Mm-hmm.
Some people want the longer stuff, and I don't blame them. If that's something that you're better at, you love more. In the elites, it'll still be there for everyone else, and for elites to jump in, of course. But for me, I love that, just like, being forced into like, can I beat this person? Whether I'm trying to beat them for first or beat them for 10th, it doesn't, in that moment, it doesn't actually matter. Something kind of primal takes over, and I'm like, must pass this person. Why? I don't know, but I must. Yes. And it's just so cool. My brain loves it.
I do that. I pick a person that, that's the person I'm going to stay with for no reason. Like, never met him before, don't know who it is, but that's the person who's just a little faster than me, who I'm going to stay with. I'm going to make sure I'm with him the whole time. And it just pushes you that little bit farther to get you going, a little bit more. And I mean, I think that's one of the things that is great on a lot of these communities, is you can find those persons. Half the time I end up becoming friends with them. But so the very first, in fact, one of the people that I talked to quite a bit, the very first ultra I did, it was just happened to be me and the same person kept like passing each other for like the first 10 miles. And then after that, we just kind of stuck together and motivated each other for the rest of the ultra. And it was just like, it was so cool. And now we talk all the time. And, it's amazing some of the people you meet out there by doing that and challenging yourself.
Oh, totally. And I mean, the people I've met, I'm with you on that. Like the people I've met. And I mean, I've been really lucky enough to just, get to meet people and get sponsors and like have companies I get to work with.
And now, a word from our sponsors.
Your body is made of trillions of cells. Your heart, brain, even taste buds. Your thoughts, feelings, and actions all start here. To be your best, you need to care for the health of these small components that make you, you. This starts in the smallest of places. Nestled deep within your cells are their powerhouses, the mitochondria. They are the essential foundation for the energy and health your cells and you need. When your mitochondria make energy, they make the byproduct free radicals, which can cause damage. To manage this, they also naturally produce antioxidants. But these decline with age and lifestyle stresses, letting free radicals build up. This causes cell stress, leading to things like fatigue, health concerns, and faster aging, impacting your ability to be your best. That's where MitoQ's cell health technology is a game changer. Whereas antioxidant supplements can't get into the mitochondria effectively, we have invented a small, positively charged molecule that's electrically attracted into the mitochondria. There, MitoQ is shown to help balance free radicals and target cell stress for cell vitality, starting a positive domino effect that optimizes your cells and ultimately you. Add life to your years. You just need to start small.
And we're back.
And I mean, when I first started in OCR, I was so fortunate because I started right as social media was taking off, and Spartan was making all these really cool photos. So like, you can be like, going to your office job, kind of straight laced, but you can have a photo up on your wall of you like covered in mud with a barbed wire scar, like, and it was just so cool to have that, those photos. And so that was also right as the sport was really, really just booming. And this is about 2013, 2014. And I was trying to make the U.S. Olympic trials in track and field. I came up short, I was going to go for it again. And then my buddy, Chad Tram, was like, hey, have you tried a Spartan race? Because I was strong as a personal trainer, strong for a runner at least. So I tried one. It was like, whoa, what was that? That was so intense. I'm exhausted everywhere. I love it. I got some work to do, but I love it. So I came in, and right as all these companies were like, what's this new sport? It got put on NBC Sports. I got sponsored by Marriott Rewards, Panasonic, Reebok. And I just feel so fortunate because I got to travel more and do more cool stuff. And at one point, okay, with Panasonic, they had this new wearable camera, and I got to jump off the Panasonic building. Okay, it was like 2 floors, but whatever. I jumped off of it. I rappelled off of it wearing their wearable camera, and it was being videotaped during their like 200-person meeting. And I came down on the side of the wall of the meeting in the window, and it was basically like showing me, showing them. It was so much fun. It was like, I never did anything like that. And I was like, what have I done? Okay. I grew up the 8th of 9 children. I have 6 brothers who I ran around with all the time. Ran in college and like became a personal trainer. So lifted weights, and somehow I'm like in a professional obstacle course racer. I get a call from Ninja Warrior to do their show. I was like, what kind of mind blowing, this like, humble little little tomboy who was like mistaken for a boy as a kid. And now I'm like, I don't know, just living this little bit surreal life. And I just was so grateful. And I still am. I mean, I've got the greatest sponsors. I've had Cliff Bar for forever. And they're awesome. They like flew Tim and my daughter out to the Special Olympics when we were doing this documentary with this really awesome athlete in the Special Olympics. I wasn't quite done nursing, and they flew Tim and my daughter out just so I could nurse like once a day. I was like, okay, you're amazing. Wow. And MitoQ is this really awesome supplement company. It's more than a supplement. It's like this, I don't know, for anyone else who's like age 40 or kind of 35 or above, it's like basically our cells start to decline, and it's one of the things that makes it a little harder to kind of keep up with 20 somethings. But then I have this for 3 years now, this awesome mitochondria targeted antioxidant that basically makes me on par with the 20 somethings as far as my cells are. And so everyone who's like, I'm juggling, I'm parenting, I do some side gigs, some personal training, some life coaching now. And, I got a kid, and during the pandemic, it was like, preschool, and just like a lot going on, lots of training for upper body, lower body, OCR training is like a full on, it's everything.
Oh, it's everything.
Grip, it's strength, it's endurance, it's everything. So for me, it was super duper helpful to like just basically learn more about cell health and get partnered up with this awesome company named MitoQ, because not only are they super supportive and incredible, and I'm so grateful for them because I get to basically follow my dream in large part thanks to them. But also basically, as you age, your cells antioxidants decline, and mine basically aren't, because I wake up and I take my MitoQ with a big glass of water, and I'm like, booyah, let's do this. I've got the energy. I'm recovered because I'm taking care of all those little things. And those little things are really big, especially as you get older. You got to stay on top of it.
So that one sounds amazing, because that's been my thing like this year. Because like I said, I hit 180, but my problem is when I hit 180, I was just running constantly. And then all of a sudden I did my first Spartan race, and all of a sudden they're like, pick up an Atlas ball. And I'm like, oh God, I haven't been.
It weighs more than I do.
Yeah, pretty much. So, and I hadn't been lifting at all. I had just been running and running and running. And I mean, like I said, I went from 310 to 180. So, and
that
it
is
was
a
just,
huge, the personal trainer me is like, that's amazing. I had one client lose 85 pounds and it was the coolest experience ever. Like, I'm always like with personal training, like you can take your, you know, your elite athletes who are like down to the little minuscule. I'm like, bring me the people who got made fun of in PE and are overweight to the degree that it's affecting their self-esteem, and let me make it fun and interesting for them. So like that, and it's not easy. And wow, that you were able to, I mean, that's a huge gap. Wow.
I got hugely lucky. And what happened is that right before the pandemic in 2019, I did Los Olivos, the beast. I actually dislocated my shoulder 4 times on hanging obstacles because I couldn't hold my shoulder couldn't hold my weight.
Oh.
And then right as after the, in January 2020, I'm like, that's it, I'm done. I'm getting rid of this. Me and my wife both went on Weight Watchers together. And then I just started running. And at the time, all of a sudden, the pandemic shut everything down. I'm in construction safety and I teach. Well, I can't teach because of the pandemic. All I can do is like Zoom like this. And so I had hours between classes where normally would be travel time, but no travel time. Now it's just Zoom classes. So I would go to the park across the street and just walk. And then after a while, I was able to start jogging, and then the jogging turned into running. And, I was watching my times drop down to like, I can remember the first time I hit, and it sounds, to most people, but to me at the time, it was amazing where I hit 4 miles in less than an hour. And I'm like, wow. And then
that's moving. Yeah.
A couple months later, it was 5 in less than an hour. And then I finally did a 10K in less than an hour. And I'm just like constantly getting faster and just going. And it was pretty much in about a year, I went from 310 to 180.
In a year? Oh, wow.
It was to a point like even my boss was like, are you sick?
Yeah.
Like, no.
Seriously. Wow.
Yeah.
That's really, that is like, wow.
Yeah. And then, like I said, all of a sudden I did a Spartan race, when they first like came back, like that first couple, and I did the Vegas one. And I did the sprint in 1 hour and 23 seconds. And I was so mad because I wanted an hour. And I missed the spear. If I hadn't missed the spear in the 30 burpees, I would have had it. I realized, like I said, on that one, if I could have done the lifting obstacles, I would have been well under an hour. But it was just every obstacle that it was lifting. I'd ran so much, I didn't run. And I'm like, I was really good at lifting before when I was big. But then when I lost the weight, I lost a lot of the muscle. So that's when I started changing the diet, and it's that balancing act now of trying to get the muscle for lifting and everything for Spartan, but still be able to run. So, and then I had this year was one of those years, like 2 years of pushing so hard, my body was just like, you're done. I was doing 100 miles.
That doesn't surprise me. Yeah. At some point, it's really cool to, I think Rhea Coble said this once, like before she announced that she had an injury, she was like, I love the idea of like pushing my limits and I love the idea of pushing my limits, but I don't actually like it when I find the limit because it means I'm injured or I'm burnt out or I'm, whatever. And it's an interesting way to put it. It is. And I hit that this year. Listened to your body, stepped back, took some rest, and then found the balance that works for you sustainably.
Mm-hmm. And that's it. Like I said, I was hitting, my goal was, a friend bet me that I couldn't do like 50 miles in a month, like in May of 2020. And I did 100. And then from then until September of this year, I did 100 miles every single month.
Wow.
For over 2 years. And finally it was just like, it was really like in June or July, I should have stopped. But because my body was just like, dude, you're almost 45, step back for a minute, let your body heal. And that was it. I had like a calf injury and a knee injury that I was kind of ignoring. And then finally, I'm like, nope, time to step back, after the Ironman. And when I wrecked the bike on the Ironman, I'm like, okay, I need to step back. So
smart. And it's hard to do that because sometimes people don't trust themselves and they think, I'm in such a great groove. What if I stop? Will I never start again? And to be able to say, no, I will. I trust myself and I need to take that rest. I just took a week off. I mean, you've got to take an off season, and it's physical and it's also mental.
It is.
You just got to take some time. And some people are like, I can't handle an off season. I get so, itchy to run. And I get that feeling. I miss my, free endorphins running too. but man, to sit down and be like, okay, what are all these things like I haven't done? I remember like those made time for. Let's make some new playlists. Let's hang out with my kid in a way that's, bigger than before. Like we're going to the zoo half an hour away or whatever. That's great. And then you kind of get that, feeling of like, I'm really excited again. And if you're burnt out physically or mentally, absence does make the heart grow fonder. So you can start that next season out after that week or two, whatever off with this sense of like, yeah, let's do this. I am so ready. I am itching to go.
Yeah. So the what you were talking about, the name I'm going to butcher,
MitoQ.
MitoQ. Yeah. Okay. That's what I thought. So MitoQ. So that helps with that kind of stuff, really, like the injuries of us. I mean, me, especially being older, that, dealing with, that we don't heal the same way you did when you were 20. Like I can remember like a small injury like I had with my calf, give it 3 days and I'm good to go again, and now it's been like, really I needed like 2 months and a lot of massage and a lot of stuff to try and get that calf back, because I never went to the doctor. I don't think it was that bad enough to go to the doctor, but it was enough to like, hey, I need to step back. So, and that's kind of one of those things it takes. You don't have that same recovery that we did when we were 20. So
that's exactly right. Like, if someone is 20 years old and taking MitoQ, is there some way that would help them? I mean, possibly, but it would be probably not very noticeable necessarily. But if someone is, even into 30, but especially like 35, 40 and beyond, that's when it's like, oh my gosh, I feel a significant difference. And when I started taking it, it wasn't even like, it was like, I have all this energy, like a shot of coffee and like, woo. Because at first I was like, I don't even know if this is working. Like, I wasn't partnered with them or anything. I was just like, trying out this new, antioxidant that I thought would be great for me because I was getting older. And really, I was also coming back from having a kid. Yeah. And I was just like, I need all the help I can get right now as a 36-year-old coming back and with big, big goals. And so I started taking it and, for a month or so, and I was like, I don't know, I don't really feel anything. And then I just very slowly and subtly, but surely realized I was doing just an extra pull-up than before. Like, oh, I just hit 16 and I had never done that before. This is within, a year and a half of having a child. And, again, losing a lot of blood and even just moving in a new place and trying to find a new gym. There's all kinds of things that come with all that. And then just little things like, oh, I just did in 1 year in 2020, I did the most mileage I've ever done. I did 80 miles in 1 week. I'd never done more than 62. Okay, yeah. Did I have more time because of the pandemic? Sure, but not really, because I also had a 3-year-old I was trying to entertain all day. So it's like, could there have been some other factors? I mean, maybe, but I still feel like the most significant factor was that I was every morning recharging my cellular batteries. And at that time, I still had speed, I still had strength, I had the drive, I had the endurance, but I just had, like, that was the main thing that was different at age 36 or 7, as opposed to when I was, 26 and 27. So, and yeah, I had a child, but I also had, my husband helping out with her a ton. And also I love kids. So I recharge with kids to some degree as well, unless it's 3 a.m. But yeah, I just feel really grateful that I have access to some really awesome information. I mean, I guess we all do on the web, to be quite honest, if we're really, really motivated. But I took a nutrition class in college, a supplement class specifically. No, it's nutrition in general, but they went over supplements. And I have just enough knowledge to know that, like, yeah, this is a big deal. Because my old coach in college, so I ran track at Georgetown, and my old coach would say, and he was hardcore too. He didn't mess around. When he said something, he meant it. He said, bring to me to practice every day the best body that you can. Well-fueled, supplements, water, all everything that goes with that. Nourished really is a great word. Well-rested, mentally ready to go. Know what you need to do. Bring your gear, all of that. And it's so true. And he'd say, when in doubt, take a nap too. Like, he was very much like, take care of your body in the physical sense and also mentally. And then we can do great things. But if you show up tired or you show up not fully nourished, then not taking good care of yourself in some way, shape or form, we just can't make a good apple pie out of bad apples. We need every ingredient to be there and there well. And so for me, as I get older, it's like, okay, the basics, cells being in the best place possible is huge. First thing in the morning, that's what I do with a glass of water. Hydration is also huge. then the healthy food. Not, every single thing is just spinach and toast. It's I have my, my dark chocolate or my whatever cake on someone's birthday. Don't get me wrong, you got to be human to last, but your good food, your hydration. And then mobility is another thing. The older I get, I'm realizing mobility is such an important thing, because those injuries, they pop up, and you can take in everything you need to help them to not last as long as they would if you weren't, but they just last longer. I mean, little kids, they fall, they get a cut, they're healed the next day, and it's just not the same.
No, it's not. It's really not. It's like one of those things. It's like, mom kisses the boo-boo, you're good to go and gone, and now it's like, a little, you step wrong and your foot's in a cast for the next 3 weeks. It's not that bad, but I mean, it's one of those things, but it's also one of those things, the things that we've done to our body over the years, it adds up. It's like, for me, I've got a knee injury, a severe knee injury when I was 20. And then 6 years ago, I actually shattered my left foot. So it's kind of one of those, it makes things very difficult sometimes to, do things because but then it's like, well, that's just an excuse. How do I work around it? How do I still do this even with those injuries, and just find ways not to aggravate them, but find ways to make them so they're not what keeping me back. So,
they're not career-ending injuries there. Yeah.
And now, a word from our sponsors.
So it's a cell health molecule, and it is a supplement. It's classed as a supplement, but it is a more advanced version of a supplement. So what it does is it's specifically targeted to your mitochondria to work as an antioxidant that fights free radicals at the source where they're produced. And most free radicals come from the mitochondria. And that ties into the story of free radicals are damaging to our cells. They cause oxidative stress, and that all increases with age and leads to damage to our cells and to our energy producing powerhouses, those mitochondria. The mitochondria, as I mentioned, produces most of the free radical damage that happens in the cell, so it's also the biggest target for damage in the cell. And so most ingredients can't actually get into the mitochondria because it has this double membrane, it's hard to pass into. And MitoQ was originally invented off of CoQ10, which, as people may have heard of, that's an antioxidant that naturally exists in the kind of energy producing machinery within your mitochondria. But the problem with CoQ10 is that it is quite big and it's not that easy to get into the mitochondria itself. So here in New Zealand, our founding scientists found a way to kind of tweak the CoQ10 molecule so that it was smaller and then it was attracted directly to the mitochondria. So it just fulfills a niche that most other antioxidants cannot do. Mitochondria targeted antioxidants are like a very kind of cutting edge thing in biotech.
And we're back.
They're going to make you sometimes, I mean, it's not always, but I feel like sometimes with the right mindset, and you definitely have the right mindset, they can almost, some of them make you even a little better if they get you to do, I know this for me, if they get me to do more mobility work or more, self-care, then it can almost be like, well, I, sprained my ankle during my first World Championship Spartan race on Killington, and I had no idea what I was signing myself up for. That elevation was beyond what I'd ever done in a month of my life. And because of that ankle sprain, I realized, oh, this is not track and field, sister. And I made my ankles so much stronger. I moved to Colorado. I was like, I need technical trail. And so I'm much better off because of that, basically fear of having that happen again. So sometimes if we're lucky enough, it's an injury that's not so chronic and lasting that it can actually kind of shock us or scare us into being better off. But yeah, some things that, shattering a foot, that sounds intense. So what are you doing to work around it?
Honestly, it was just one of those things for a while, and that was my excuse for a while. That's one of the reasons I got to 310 is because I used it as my excuse. I basically, what I did 6 years ago, I had a ladder, the ladder slid down and caught my foot in between the rungs and basically just all 5 metatarsals right across the top. But in fact, the bones are still shaped like this. They never straightened out completely. So they told me I'd never run again. They told me I'd never have a push up foot. And I'm like, okay. So of course I believed them for a while. And then after a while, I'm like, yeah, this is stupid. I need to try and do something. And that's when I started walking. And then it was when I started jogging a little bit, and then I started getting some pain. And I talked to my doctor, and I'm like, every once in a while I get this like sharp pain and it hurts really bad. And then like, but the next day it will almost feel like I can move better. And they're like, oh, that's because it's scar tissue. You've let it sit for so long, there's massive amounts of scar tissue. They're like, it's gonna happen again. And it did for like the first probably 6 months. Every once in a while I'd be running and almost just drop to the ground because I'd get it like a pop and it would hurt so bad. But then all of a sudden, like the next day I could have I'd have more movement. And it was like, oh, so I'm breaking. And it took me a while to break up the scar tissue. But once I did, I had the movement again. And like I said, I mean, the 4:39 marathon was after the injury. So
Wow, that's an incredible story. I hope everyone is really like understanding how incredible that is to go from a 9-hour marathon, which is incredible in its own way. Don't get me wrong. I mean, even if someone's walking the entire time, that's a long time to be walking.
It is.
You know, and you're kind of speed while you're trying to, you know, everyone wants to get done as quick as they can. So you're kind of doing the little hip action thing, I imagine. But 4 hours and 39 minutes, that is cruising. That is legit running, cruising. And after that type of injury and having to come back from that, you know, it's like when, you know, I don't know how it affected you mentally, but
A lot.
right?
Yeah.
I mean, how could it not?
Oh, it was,
I'll never run again. That would crush me.
It was, because I mean, it was one of those things that happened in 2016. And at the time, in 9 weeks, I was supposed to be in Hawaii for the Spartan races after the injury. And it was one of those that I can remember even sitting there and looking at the doctor going, well, can I still do the Spartan races in 9 weeks? And he's like, your foot's still going to be in a boot. And I'm like, but could I walk in that boot? And there are pictures. So I did. I DNF'd the beast because I just couldn't move fast enough with the boot, but I finished the super. So I have pictures of me doing the super in Hawaii with a full boot. But then it was like after that, I mean, I couldn't, it took mentally, and mentally it destroyed me because now all of a sudden all that work, because I was working so hard at that point, trying to lose weight then, and get to where I wanted to be. And then it just ruined I mean, it stopped everything. And you get that, I made the mental mistake of like, well, I guess I'm done. And pretty much sat on the couch and ate potato chips, but I was still doing Spartan races. So I'm like, I'm still doing something. I'm like, but you're barely, I was like barely finishing them, you know? And that was, like I said, the one in 2019 when like everything went bad, you know, I kept dislocating I finished it, but I mean, I could barely lift my arm because, you know, just how much, you know, everything. And I'm just like, and at that point, I'm like, I'm done just finishing. I want to crush these. And then honestly, I think 2020, when everything shut down, it gave me a chance because now I'm not injuring myself on the races. So all I can do was walk and run. So I had nothing, you know, no races to do to cause me an injury. So it's like I tell everyone, it sounds bad to say this, but that year with no races, I think was a blessing to me because it gave me that chance to really run and push myself. So when all of a sudden there's like, okay, races are open, I'm 180 pounds instead of 310.
Yeah, that's huge.
It's like I went from the race at Los Olivos, I was about 310, to the race in Vegas, which was my very next race, but that was 2021. I was 180.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, that was, you know, yes, you had more time. That's great, but you chose to spend that time going for walks, you know, and that's, you know, there are lots of other ways you could spend that time and you put in that work, and that's just so cool.
And it's one of those things people have to look at too, like, you know, at the time frame, like you said, I had the time to do it. My youngest kid's, you know, 20 now. So he was 18 at the time. So he could take care of himself. I didn't have, you know, worry about doing anything with the kids. I could just take off time, you know, whatever. And, you know, it worked. So timing was right, but it was making that decision to do it. And that was one of those things I kept saying I was going to and never did. And finally I'm like, no, I'm going to do it, and just did it. So, you know, and sometimes it's tough, but the hard part is keeping it going. Like I said, all of a sudden where your body's like shut down for a minute and you have that fear of like, well, if I stop, will I start back up? You know, and that's my biggest fear, that if and I think that's why it took me so long to finally listen to my body and say, okay, take a break. Because
can you plan in that break? Like I take a break every, you know, after my last big race this season, I take 1 week off.
Yeah.
So can you just tell yourself, I do that, you know, over the holidays or over at the end of the season or whatever, you know, I take that week off. I do it proactively. I don't wait till something's dangling off me. I don't wait till I'm mentally, you know, can't stand the idea of going out for a run. I take that week off, and then, the day after I'm done with my week off, I have, a run plan with my buddy, and we go and we do it. And that's just what we do. Because if you do that proactively, then you're hopefully gonna side, swipe, or not side swipe, but sidestep quite a few injuries, because we need that time off. And then we, if you have a periodized training plan, then theoretically you start the season out with lots of base and not a lot of real intense stuff, and then by the end of this middle of the season, you're doing more intense stuff. So yeah, still doing a long run, but fewer just easy runs, and more, at least every, twice a week, more kind of the tempos and the fartleks and the sprints and all that. And then, by the end, it's more quality, more and more quality work. And then by that point, though, if you've kind of really planned it well, you should be pretty ready to take a break. You take that week off, and then you're really excited to go out, but you don't have to go fast. You're just kind of going for those runs. You're chit-chatting with your friends. You're just doing it in a way that's actually, really fun and low key and all that. And then you slowly build up. And, if you do that over and over and over, hopefully you will be able to build upon your fitness every year, especially if you're taking care of the little things like we talked about, even as you age. And also avoiding injury, because you're not just like going till you're like, and I'm broken.
And that's it. I think for me is, like you said, scheduling it in. Because if I don't schedule it in, it's going to be like, okay, yeah, I'll take a break after this next race, but there's always another race.
There is always another race. There's a road race, and then it's like, oh, I'll take a break over the holidays because OCR has like a 1 month off. Oh, but wait, there's all the like jingle bell dashes. Like if you do more than one sport, you're like, oh man, there's a turkey trot and then a jingle bell dash, and then whatever. And how can I miss it all? And the races do go on without us. We can also volunteer. We can also walk a 5K or whatever it is that we want to do with a buddy, or so there's always that. But it's hard. We love doing what we do. We just love it. And for me, I'm like, it's free therapy. It's like endorphin boost. Like I don't just do it for fitness.
Well, oh yeah. And it's one of those things, a lot of people are like, why do you run? I'm like, you would be surprised. For me, it's like, it's my meditation. I'm not one, I don't have, my brain won't shut off for 10 minutes for me to sit down and meditate. I will lose my mind. So my meditation literally is put on my headphones and go run.
Yeah.
So, and that's my meditation.
No, I'm with you on that. Yeah. I did 2 minutes for 100 days, and I had to like blog it to hold myself accountable, because I was like, oh boy, this is a challenge.
Yeah.
But yeah, so everyone has their thing. And but that's the thing. It's like, so during that one week off, if you're able to take that 1 week off, and hopefully you can, then if you can find something else to substitute in that time, I've found like, okay, that 1 week, what else gives me that feeling of that meditative feeling, but without actually having to meditate? Okay, well, I'll get some really great books, or I'll, buy a new, maybe you're really into music, and you'll buy a new album, or just something where you're like, okay, cool, I'll still get like my fix, but without having to, continue to pound my body, without giving it a chance to just chill.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, I agree. And that is the hardest part. Sometimes it's just getting that, that break in.
Yeah.
So is there anything else you wanted to talk about, or?
I'm so glad I got to be on the show. This has been so much fun, and it's super cool to hear your story, because I had, just, a lot of interesting experiences with people as a personal trainer, with lots of weight loss and stuff. But it just, every time it fascinates me to hear exactly what people's stories are. And I love that you're just so open about it. And there's so many parts to your story that are relatable, and you're inspiring so many people with how you share it and what you've done and how you continue to persevere. So really just thank you, because it's been super like such an honor to chat with you and hear your story.
Well, thank you. I mean, and like I said, it's been amazing following you for years. I mean, all the things that you've gone through and Tim went through and everything else. And I mean, your family, and I mean, I'm one of those ones, I had kids way too young, but it works out for me. But like I said, my youngest is 20, so it's like, I'm done. So
yeah. You're like my sister, where she's just like, okay, I did it younger, and now I'm like, 50 and, footloose and fancy free. And it's like, okay. Whereas Tim's like, I'm 50 and just became a dad. It's different ways to do it. Everyone's different. No way's right or wrong. It's just different.
As long as you love the kids and the family, everything works. So
there you go. Right on.
Well, we usually Dawn tries to keep me to an hour. If not, I keep going for like ever. But
I know. Seriously,
I feel like I could talk to you forever. So, thank you for being on. Is there anything you want to say to the listeners in closing?
I hope to see you all out at an obstacle course race next year. Woohoo!
Yeah, I'm gonna do a few. So I've got a few in my mind. So I don't know which ones I'm gonna do yet. Probably a lot in Texas because if my wife has her way, that's where we'll be in a year. So
Okay, well,
and,
yeah.
She's tired of the cold of Washington. She's out.
Yeah. I mean, I miss Seattle, don't get me wrong, but I go back in the summer more now and I'm like, this is the best place in the world. It's like, and it's also summer.
Yeah, it's summer because right now it's not that. No.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you. It's been amazing talking to you, and I'm hope to see you soon at a race.
Oh yeah, likewise, Mike. Thank you so much.
All
Happy
right, thank
holidays.
You too. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to the BeastNet podcast. If you haven't done it yet, find us on Facebook, like and share the podcast. Give us a review on iTunes or Spotify. All these things will help to expand the show in the future. Don't forget to subscribe and let us know what you think and what you'd like to hear.